still really only one story in town, although developments, of course, continue apace. Rioters now being warned that they could face terrorism charges and also that they can expect rapid sentencing, something that a character called Dylan Carey already knows about. He pleaded guilty yesterday at Liverpool Crown Court to violent disorder. At Liverpool Magistrates Court heard that a hostile crowd of around 200 people had formed in the area and began throwing items towards the mosque. They also chanted, "Who the bleep is Allah?" and shouted at police officers, "Why are you protecting them?" So, I mean, that immediately throws up a couple of questions, doesn't it, for people caught up in that kind of violence. Where did they get the idea that the killer of the 3 little girls in Southport was a Muslim? Why would they otherwise bring Allah into it? And where on earth did they get the incredibly toxic and dangerous notion that the police were somehow complicit in keeping information from the public?
Was this guy being monitored by the security services? Some reports say he was, others less sure. The police say it's a non-terror incident, just as they said the stabbing of an Army Lieutenant Colonel in uniform on the streets of Kent the other day was a non-terror incident. I just wonder whether the truth is being withheld from us. I don't know the answer to that, but I think it is a fair and legitimate question.
Well, that's one question answered. That is precisely where they got the idea that the police were keeping information from them. Call it a coincidence if you prefer. But guess which political party Dylan Carey was out canvassing for last month in Makerfield, up in the northwest? Go on, have a guess. I'm not going to give any prizes for this one. Yeah, you got it. At Nigel's latest publicity vehicle, the Reform UK Limited Party, a party which, of course, 20% of its current MPs have served time in jail for attacking British women. But, of course, the riots have absolutely nothing to do with the man that told people like Dylan Carey that the police officers were possibly, or the police were possibly keeping information from them, and indeed that the killer was a Muslim. Nothing to do with Nigel.
At no point in the last week or in the previous 30 years have I ever encouraged the use of violence, have I ever encouraged the use of anti-democratic means. And yet, you get the internet and people saying things on the internet. We have senior Labour politicians like Andy MacDonald saying, I wanted the riots to happen. Mm-hmm. We have former Conservative MPs like Anna Soubry saying that I orchestrated the riots. Mm-hmm. We have LBC presenters like James O'Brien calling them the Farage riots. I have had nothing to do with any form of street violence now or at any point in my career.
Did I call them the Farage riots? I'm so sorry. I should have said Farage, the Farage riots. I apologise to everybody concerned for that little slip of the tongue. What did he say about violence? I didn't quite catch it.
If they don't deliver this Brexit that I spent 25 years of my life working for, then I will be forced to don khaki, pick up a rifle and head for the front lines.
Gosh. And of course, one is left with the other question of where the idea to target these hotels came from, why the idea to target hotels containing completely innocent human beings, children included, of course, some of whom witnessed rioters drawing their fingers across their throat in a throat-cutting gesture while they were cowering in buildings that were already on fire. Where on earth would the people currently being convicted of rioting got the idea that targeting these hotels would be a good plan?
We've no idea who some of these people are. We've no idea whether some of these might be ISIS.
That was Farage himself, filming himself in 2020 at a hotel where asylum seekers were being accommodated. I mean, you know, it's a wonderful rhetorical tactic, isn't it? I have no idea whether that man over there might be a paedophile. I'm just asking questions. I've no idea whether that woman over there might be a terrorist. I'm just asking questions. But the kind of people setting fire to bins and hotels and attacking police officers receive a very different message, don't they, from that kind of rhetoric. Well, at least I kind of think they do. So he's very unhappy about these riots being called the Farage riots. The explanation of why he posted that original clip suggesting that the authorities were keeping information from the police and indeed that the police were keeping information from the people and indeed that the culprit had been on intelligence watch lists or indeed had been a Muslim. That was extraordinary. I should probably play you that bit as well. Who do you think his source was? Where would you turn to for your information? Where would you turn to for your reliable information on what was going on in Britain? Would you turn to me for the facts? Would you turn to the BBC? Perhaps GBB's is your preferred broadcast outlet, but you'd probably want to double check or triple check, wouldn't you, the provenance of these claims. So you've seen on social media or you've come across the claim somewhere that the police are deliberately keeping information from, and that is the single greatest reason why police officers, some of whom will be listening to this program, some of whom their wives, their husbands, their partners, their children will be listening to this program. Police officers coming under sustained and vicious attack from members of the public who believe the lie that the police were somehow complicit in keeping information from the public, a lie that you just heard issued from Nigel Farage's own nicotine-stained lips, albeit with the constant caveat, I don't know, I'm just asking questions. I don't know whether he's feigning ignorance of British law or whether he is genuinely ignorant of British law, but the police can't decide to release any names at all, especially when they're under 18. That decision has to be taken by a High Court judge. But why let the facts stand in the way of an opportunity to inflame the sort of violent thugs that have been terrorising completely innocent and law-abiding citizens up and down our country for the last week? Why let the facts stand in the way of the feelings? But where do you think he was getting his information from? This sitting member of Parliament, this elected MP, where do you think this broadcaster, this self-styled journalist, where do you think he was getting his information from? Where do you think he turns to when he wants to get a really clear steer on what's actually going on in Britain? It wouldn't be an alleged human trafficker and organised criminal based in Romania, surely. It just wouldn't be, would it? There's no earthly way anybody would claim that they only put this poison into public discourse because they believed what they read on the social media feed of a Romania-based alleged human trafficker and organised criminal. Not even Nigel Farage would stoop that low, surely, to try to exonerate his own culpability in this crisis by claiming that he had acted in an entirely honourable fashion by taking the words of an alleged human trafficker and organised criminal as potential gospel.
This is the problem, isn't it? One of the reasons the Southport riots were as bad as they were is we weren't told the truth. There were stories online from some very prominent folks with big followings, Andrew Tate, etc.
Whoa, what? Andrew Tate? Literally the alleged human trafficker and organised criminal. So here we have a British MP claiming that his decision to inject poison into the bloodstream of the British public, encouraging people like the young man in Liverpool who has just pleaded guilty to violent disorder, but who in April, of course, was canvassing for Nigel Farage's political party, encouraging them to join public violence where the police are being accused of keeping information from the public. Nigel Farage's source for this was Andrew Tate's social media account? But he's absolutely adamant that the riots had nothing to do with him.
At no point in the last week or in the previous 30 years have I ever encouraged the use of violence, have I ever encouraged the use of anti-democratic means. And yet, you get the internet and people saying things on the internet. We have senior Labour politicians like Annie MacDonald saying, I wanted the riots to happen. Mm-hmm. We have former Conservative MPs like Anna Soubry saying that I orchestrated the riots. Mm-hmm. We have LBC presenters like James O'Brien calling them the Farage riots. I have had nothing to do with any form of street violence now or at any point in my career.
And yet all of the people engaging in the street violence believed what Nigel Farage told them might be true just 1 week ago. So, hey, I am a little bit guilty sometimes of cognitive bias. Is it fair to call these pogroms, these riots, after the man, the most prominent disseminator of the lies which many of the rioters apparently believed? Is it fair to call them the Farage or Farage riots? If not, why not? I think there's a fairly good case there of why it's a perfectly reasonable sobriquet, but Nigel's very upset, recording more little films of himself, casting himself as the real victim. 3 dead girls, of course, in Southport. Police under constant attack from mindless thuggery. You've got hotels being set on fire. You've got shops being looted. You've got businesses being destroyed. But I think we should all take a moment now to feel sorriest for Nigel Farage, the real victim of the 2024 riots up and down this country. Is clearly the man who told the rioters that the police were keeping information from them. And where did he get his information from? An alleged human trafficker and organised criminal. But hey-ho, he doesn't like the title Farage Riots. Simple question. Is it fair? And invitation is always open for him to return to this studio, have a chat with me. Tom Swarbrick did an excellent job yesterday of holding him to account for words that he has actually said. Didn't brook any of Farage's usual attempts to shift the focus or to gilly-gash over the information, or to start talking about something completely different, or to answer a question that hadn't been asked. But the Farage riots, is that fair?